Hello, is this Eerie?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Dustin from KMSU Radio in Minnesota. How you doing today?
Fine, how are you? Oh, is it 12 o'clock already? Sorry, I was just running around doing a bunch of stuff here, setting up my voodoo box and things.
Oh, no
So
problem.
I lost track of time. How's it going?
It's good. Is this still a good time to speak for a few minutes?
Oh, fine, yeah, fine. I was just, like I said, just once I get going into, arranging stuff and putting bones onto shelves and, I just lose track of time.
Sure. Well, it's great to be speaking with you, and I know you got a lot of stuff going on, and I want to talk about your book, Misery Obscura, back in print after being out for a long time. Is there anything new in the book? Or
It was out for, we did about 3 printings, I think, and then it dropped off for about a year and a half or 2 years maybe. I can't remember exactly. But, we tried to, change a few things, photos that I wanted a little bit differently. There was a lot of overlay on certain photos I wasn't that crazy about. But the files, the way they were handled, we could only do so much,
Sure.
So we just tried to clean it up and mainly get it back in print, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm sure all the Misfit Samhain and Danzig fans have this. I said, no, I would know if they did. So getting it back in print was the main thing so we can, promote it and go on to, the next book,
Yeah, the pictures are amazing, and it's great that you guys had, I guess, the foresight to not only take the photos, but to hang on to the stuff for the future. I'm sure a lot of bands weren't thinking that far ahead.
Oh, I've got tons of videotape, too, of us, recording and rehearsing and just, whole shows and stuff like that. I was always the one that was, doing it. And when I was taking pictures, a lot of times, Glenn would say, what are you taking a picture of this for? I'm like, it's for the book. It was always down the road. I was going to put out a book at some point,
Well, I know you were a drummer from early on. How did the photography enter the world? Were you doing it at the same time, or?
No, I think I was taking drum lessons at the boys' club with a friend of mine who was a really good drummer. He was in the fife and drum corps, and I just got interested in that because he was really good at it. So I went down there. We used those really big marching sticks, really thick ones, and did that for a while. Didn't really dig it. Decided I wasn't going to cut it or just didn't feel like practicing. I don't remember. And then my dad got a camera that my grandmother brought over from Japan around the same time, 8, 9, 10 years old. And he started taking a lot of pictures and showing me what he learned. And then he just handed me the camera one day. We were at Lime Rock Speedway in New Jersey watching a road race. And he says, well, just, see what you can do. Try to take the pictures of the cars and see what happens. And, so I started there. And then probably 7th or 8th grade, a friend of mine had a dark room and a real good camera. Started hanging around with him. And it kind of took off from there. And I pretty much was taking pictures from 13, 14 all the way on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously, the music scene at that time with the Misfits was definitely chaotic in the crowd and on stage. So the fact that you were able to capture these photos and the way they turned out is it's incredible.
I was used to being, knocked around in the crowd because I used to go see shows, and we would stage dive and slam dance and stuff. So getting in there with the camera was a little bit give somebody an elbow and then try to focus, or do whatever. So it wasn't that big a deal. But since I knew them, I could get on stage and have access to stuff other people might not be able to get,
Yeah. Well, I know you were in a band yourself, Rosemary's Babies, around that time, but is it true that they offered you a spot in the band, in the Misfits?
Yeah, well, when we were in high school, probably 15, Doyle was just joining the band or had just joined the band and said, why don't you pick up the drums again? Because we always need a drummer or we might need a drummer down the road. So, I was just like, okay. And he made me an 8-track tape of all this unreleased stuff. And a lot of their things, gave me some of the records. So I used to just go down, put the headphones on, and play to the songs. And then I don't remember, I think it was like senior year maybe, where all of a sudden they didn't have a drummer. And he says, well, why don't you come down and, try out for the Misfits? And that was like on a Friday. And I wasn't used to not hearing the vocal, because they played so loud. I couldn't hear Glenn singing, and he was cueing me, through the vocal just because I wasn't a great drummer and hadn't really done it much.
Sure.
So I was playing too fast. It was like screwing stuff up, but it went all right. And I played Glenn's favorite drum beat. I knew that he was going to ask me that. And that's what I asked my friend, same guy that I took lessons with. I said, what are they doing here? And he goes, he plays me the beat. And he goes, they're playing the same beat in every song. So I just did that, and it went well. And he said, okay, you're in. We got a gig in 30 days at the Irving Plaza. And over the weekend, because I was doing Rosemary's Babies and wanted to put out our record, I just kind of thought, well, I don't know, because I was running the show, I didn't know if I wanted to just be somebody's drummer. And they had 5 drummers over the years. So I just kind of said, nah, I don't think the time is right. I want to stick with this stuff. And then they went and got Robo,
Well, as a guy who was so close with the band and, looking through all these old photos, could you kind of tell that they were kind of slowly falling apart, I guess, maybe dissolving?
Well, Glenn and I got to be friends, and I was making a lot of T-shirts, and, we had a lot of stuff in common, like, monster toys and horror movies and things like that. So I used to hang out, and we'd go to the movies or go have lunch or whatever, and we just started talking a lot about what we liked in a band. And it's hard to get guys to show up for rehearsal, and wouldn't commit, or it's like, oh, I can't go to do this show because I got to do this, or I got to work. And so we were kind of like-minded, and he was telling me that he was not as happy with the band as he was before, and that he was thinking about starting a new band. So one day it was just like, well, you want to do this new band with me? And I'm like, sure. So he came down to my house in Lodi. I had drums and amps and stuff set up for Rosemary's Babies, and we tried to work on the first couple of songs, and I couldn't cut it on the drums after like 2 or 3 rehearsals because the timing wasn't what I was used to. And one day on the phone, he just said, why don't you play bass, and we'll get Steve from Morning Noise to play drums. I said, okay, and went down, bought a bass, and took it from there.
That seems to be with a lot of bass players. They kind of just have it thrown at them, or they fall into it somehow, it seems.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened with Paul McCartney. He was playing guitar, and all of a sudden they had no bass player, and he said, well, no. The other guy said, I'm not going to do it. So he had to pick it up and run with it. So, yeah, but Glenn was like, anybody can play bass. I was like, okay.
Well, you and Glenn obviously played together for a long time, and you mentioned Samhain, and of course went on to play in Danzig. And I mean, it's pretty gutsy to leave the Misfits and try to start over, but obviously you guys, made it, I would say, even bigger at the time. Could you kind of sense you guys were on the right track pretty early on?
The Samhain stuff was really interesting and a lot different than the Misfits stuff, and we didn't play anything fast, really. And the Misfits had been playing some, last record was pretty fast. They played fast on stage. And so he wanted to do more intricate songs, or songs that, had more of a message and all that. So we didn't get like a great reception when we first started, because people kept yelling out for Misfit songs, and they wanted us to play fast and stuff. But it was good. It was a real learning experience for me, because we, going in the studio with somebody who had a great voice and wrote great songs and had done a lot of recording and touring and all this. And, so I learned a lot. And then just the progression as we got different guys, in the band, just turned into Danzig, So I always kind of considered it the same band, until we started playing more bluesy and more Black Sabbath-y kind of stuff,
Sure. Well, then I got to ask you, being so close with Glenn, did you ever see him getting back together with the Misfits? I mean, that was quite the shock to a lot of people.
No. when you get older, you start thinking maybe I should tie up some loose ends. That's just my opinion.
Sure.
But he always felt a little bitter about it, and never really wanted to talk about it publicly. But he would tell me stories, and we would talk about things that we did when the band was still together, and we were all friends. So it was kind of sad that they didn't talk, and I never saw it happening. But years later, after I left the band, you could see what was blowing in the wind. Like the maybe this could happen. And Jerry was always trying to get the band back together. So, and then when Doyle stepped in and said, "Well, I'm gonna make it happen," and I was just like, "Yeah, I think it's gonna happen." And I felt good about it. I was just like, all these people that never got a chance to see him, all the younger kids, and the shows went real good. Everybody was happy. The band seemed to have a great time, and I was just like, great. Maybe they'll do some more, or do a new record or something.
Sure. Well, I know you've had a lot of great albums over the years as well after you left him, and a lot of solo stuff working with other people. Is there anything maybe in the works now or something that's upcoming?
Well, I want to put out another record. I haven't done one in a while, and when I moved down to Nashville, I figured there'd be so many players that I might be able to get some guys to play. But everybody here is in like 3 or 4 different bands, plus they work a regular job, and then everybody wants to get paid, and all this. So like the money thing is always a problem. So I'm hoping to get some money together and put out another record.
Awesome. I know you were working on a film for a while too. Is that still in the works?
Well, we're still trying to get money for it. Because the producers and myself, we didn't have the money to put up to even start. To get equipment and talk about traveling to get interviews and things, and so we kept trying to get investors, and everything kept falling through. So the main producer just said, "You know what? Why don't you just take over this whole thing, and maybe you can get it together." And he had, was starting a family, and was a bus driver and things, and so it really wasn't going anywhere. So we're still trying to get funding, and maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully it sees the light of day. And you mentioned working on the new album. Hopefully that comes out soon. Of course, Misery Obscura is back in print. Anything else maybe we didn't touch on, or
just working on the second book now, which is we've got like 800 images, maybe even more, that haven't been used or haven't even been seen really. And I've been working with that with my manager, Laura J. She's been restoring the photos because they're 30 years old and, dirty and scratched and all this. So she's been cleaning them up and sending them to me, and she's doing some phenomenal work. She's done some stuff that we did before for like art shows and photography shows where, blew these 35 millimeter negatives up to like 18 by 24, and they just look phenomenal. So I'm really excited about doing that, and hopefully we'll get that out in like a year or so.
Awesome. Yeah, I think now is the time for sure. I mean, everywhere you go, you see 13-year-old kids with Misfit shirts. It really seems like you guys are really back in, I guess, the mainstream. I don't know if maybe you saw that in the early days happening, but it's here.
Well, never really. There was a real small scene back then, and it was just basically, do the next record, write the next song, and play the next show. And I don't know what Glenn was thinking exactly, because Samhain wasn't commercial, and the Misfits never really got that big, and probably would have gotten bigger had they not broken up at that particular time. But I think the whole Samhain Danzig thing really kept the Misfits name in the public eye. And then Jerry, reformed the band, and they were playing and putting out records and had lots of T-shirts out there and lots of merchandising. So everybody, all these younger kids started picking up the records and buying the T-shirts and, just keeping the whole legacy alive, So it's way bigger now than it ever was,
Awesome. Again, Eerie, I'm a huge fan, and I really appreciate you taking the time out today.
Oh, no problem. Good to talk to you.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot, man.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.